Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for being here with us. There are moments in live music that do not announce themselves as important while they are happening. They arrive quietly, almost gently, and only later do they begin to reveal the depth of what was felt on night during Coachella Week 2. A performance unfolded that many would later as different, not because it was louder or not more dramatic, but because within it seemed to shift the unusual sense of distance between artist, song, and audience. At the center of that moment was Fujikaze standing in a space that was both familiar and entirely new, moving through a piece of music that carried its own history while allowing it to become something else. The song itself was already known to many. Bad Boy had lived for years in the voices and memories of listeners across different places, shaped by its regional performance in way they felt complete. When a song like that Jump Me Again, especially in a city as large and diverse as this festival, it brings expectation with it, not necessarily demand, but a quiet sense of comparison, by subtle question of how it will be approached. Yet, what unfolded here did not seem concerned with comparison. It felt more like a conversation, not one that did not try to replace the original voice, but to stand beside it and explore what could exist in between. The performance began without urgency. There was no visible attempt to calm attention through sudden movement of or intensity. Instead, there was a kind of stillness that allowed the audience to settle into the moment. The stillness did not feel empty, it felt intentional, as through it was creating a space where the song could arrive naturally rather than being introduced with face. In that space, the first note carried a quiet clarity. There was recognizable yet shaped in a way that made them feel newly present. As the performance continued, the structure of the song remained, but the emotional text began to shift. The phrasing was softer in places, more open in other. Certain lines seemed to stretch slightly as if they were being allowed more time to exist. The subtle reshaping did not alter the identity of the song, but it changed how it was experienced. The audience was no longer simply recalling what they already knew. They were listening in a way that required attention, not because something unfamiliar was being forced upon them, but because something familiar was being revealed from a different angle. In a moment like this, it becomes clear that interpretation is not about adding more, it's about choosing what to hold on to and what to release. The performance did not attempt to fill every space. There were pauses that felt deliberately, a silence that seemed to cry as much meaning as the notes themselves. These polls invited the listener to participate, to bring their own sense of the song into the experience. It created a shared space where the performance was not only being given but also being received and shaped in real life. As the music moved forward, there was a gradual sense of expansion, not in volume or scale, but in feeling. The song began to feel less like a fixed piece or more like something unfolding, each line connected to the next line with a quiet continuity, allowing the performance to develop naturally rather than building toward a single defined peak. This approach created a different kind of engagement. Instead of waiting for a climax, the audience remained present, thoughtful, attentive to the subtle change there were taking place. It was during this unfolding that another layer began to emerge. The presence of G-Dragon was not part of the stage itself, yet the connection between artists became the point of reflection for many who were aware of the broader musical context, not as a direction, interaction, or confirmed response, but as part of the shared cultural space that the song belonged to. When a piece of music moves across different voices and interpretation, it carries trace of those who have shaped it before. In this sense, the performance did not exist in isolation. It was part of an ongoing dialogue with music, one that continued to evolve as artists engage with each other's work in thoughtful and respectful way. The idea of connection, even when indirect, adds depth to the experience. It reminds the listener that music is not static. It moves between place across time and place, changing slight with each encounter. The performance became an example of this moment. It did not seek to redefine the song completely, but it allowed it to breathe in a new environment, shared by a different voice and a different moment. As the final section approached, there was no abrupt shift or dramatic escalation. The performance continued with the same sense of balance that had been present from the beginning. The consistency created a feeling of completeness not because everything had been intensified, but because everything had been allowed to exist fully. The ending did not feel like a conclusion imposed from the outside. It felt like a natural point of rest where the song had reached the end of its current expression. When the last note settled into silence, the audience response reflected the nature of what had just taken place. It was not only about excitement or applause, there was also a quiet recognition, a sense that something meaningful had been experienced. This recognition did not rely on explanation, it was felt in the way the moment lingered, in the way people remained attentive even if after the sound had faded. Looking back at the performance, it became clear that its impact did not come from a single defining element. It emerged from a series of choices that were consistent in their intention. The choice of beginning with stillness to allow the song to unfold gradually, to respect its original form while exploring new emotional spaces, and to trust that the audience would follow without the need for constant emphasis or reinforcement. Their choice created an environment where the music could exist with clarity and depth. The idea of something being described as another dimension often suggests a dramatic departure from what it known. In the case, it felt more accurate to understand it was dipping rather than a departure. The performance did not leave the song behind, it moved further into it, revealing aspects that may not have been as visible before. The sense of depth is what gave the emotional its lasting quality. It did not rely on immediate impact alone. It continued to resonate as it was reflected upon, as listeners returned to it in their thoughts. In the broader concept of live performance, movement like this serves as a reminder of what music can do when it is approached with care and attention. It does not always need to be larger or louder to be meaningful. Sometimes its strength lies in its ability to create space, to invite presence, and to allow both the artist and the audience to meet within the space without distraction. The performance during that evening did not attempt to define itself as extraordinary. It did not present itself as something separate from what had come before. Instead, it remained grounded in the act of expression, in the simple yet complex process of sharing a song in a way that felt honest to the moment. This honesty in what gave it weight. It allowed the experience to stand on its own, without needing to be framed by external labels or expectations. As time moved forward, the memory of such moments often become clearer on rather than fading. The detail that once seemed subtle being to reveal their significance, the stillness at the beginning, the careful shaping of each line, the quiet sense of connection that extended beyond the stage. These elements come together to form an understanding that is not immediate but gradually deepened with reflection. In the way, the performance become more than an event. It become part of an ongoing experience, one that continued to exist in the way it is remembered and felt. It showed that music, as its most effective, does not and end when the sound stops. It continues in the spaces it has created, in the thoughts it has encouraged, in the connection it has quietly formed. What was seen and heard on the stage was not defined by intensity or spectacle, it was defined by presence, a presence that allowed a familiar song to by experience in a new way, that acknowledged its origin while opening it to new possibilities, and that trusted in the ability of the audience to recognize and appreciate the depth of what was being offered. And in that presence, something lasting was created, not something that needed to be explained in detail, but something that could be felt with clarity. A moment where music moved gently beyond its usual boundaries, not by force but by intention, and where the experience remained long after the stage had returned to silence. Thank you for watching the video. For getting more updates, press the bell icon and hit the subscribe button. Your one comment make us happy.